A millionaire demanded that a humble old man be kicked out of a luxury restaurant because he smelled like animals, but she had no idea who the old man really was. The evening light filtered through the enormous windows of the Golden Sky restaurant, illuminating the white tablecloths and silver cutlery with a golden glow. The murmur of elegant conversations and the tinkling of crystal glasses filled the air, creating an atmosphere of refinement and exclusivity. At that moment, the restaurant doors swung open, and an imposing figure made her entrance. Elizabeth Blackwell, known in high society circles as the Iron Queen, walked with a firm and elegant step towards the maitre d'. Her black hair, perfectly styled in an elaborate bun, contrasted with her pale skin and green eyes, cold as ice. She wore a cream-colored designer suit that accentuated her slender figure and made her social status clear. "Good evening," Elizabeth said with an authoritative voice. "Table for one, please, and make sure it's the best in the house." The maitre d', accustomed to dealing with demanding clients, nodded with a servile smile. "Of course, Mrs. Blackwell. We have a perfect table for you by the window. This way, please." As Elizabeth followed the maitre d', her eyes scrutinized the restaurant, evaluating each of the diners as if she were inspecting merchandise. Her gaze abruptly stopped at a table near hers, where an older man was sitting alone. The elderly man, with his grey hair and face furrowed by wrinkles that spoke of a life of hard work, stood out completely from the luxurious atmosphere of the restaurant. He wore a worn plaid shirt and jeans that had seen better days. His hands, resting on the table, showed calluses and small scars. Elizabeth frowned, disgusted by the presence of the old man in such an exclusive place. She sat at her table but couldn't take her eyes off the man who seemed so out of place. "Excuse me," she called to the waiter with an impatient gesture. "Who is that man? How is it possible that they allowed him in?" The waiter, visibly uncomfortable, responded in a low voice. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't reveal information about other customers. May I offer you the wine list?" Elizabeth rejected the list with a brusque gesture. "I'm not interested in wine right now. What I want to know is how it's possible that in a restaurant of this caliber they allow people like that," she said, casting a contemptuous look towards the old man. At that precise moment, the restaurant manager, Michael Turner, approached Elizabeth's table. He was a middle-aged man with an impeccable suit and a professional smile that hid his nervousness. "Mrs. Blackwell, it's a pleasure to have you with us tonight," Michael said in a soft voice. "Is there anything I can help you with?" Elizabeth wasted no time in expressing her disgust. "Mr. Turner, I am deeply disappointed. I come to the Golden Sky expecting an experience of the highest quality, and I find that," she said, discreetly pointing at the old man, "that man smells like animals and completely ruins the atmosphere of this place. I demand that you remove him immediately." Michael turned pale. He knew well the influence of Elizabeth Blackwell and the damage she could cause to the restaurant's reputation if she left unsatisfied. However, he was also aware that what she was asking was ethically questionable. "Mrs. Blackwell, I understand your concern, but nothing," Elizabeth interrupted. "Either he goes or I go, and I assure you that if I leave, I will personally make sure that all my acquaintances know that the Golden Sky is no longer an appropriate place for the elite of this city." Michael swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the decision on his shoulders. With a heavy heart, he approached the old man's table. "Excuse me, sir," he said in a low voice. "I'm very sorry to have to ask you this, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The old man looked up, his blue eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and sadness. "Have I done something wrong?" he asked in a broken voice. "No, you haven't done anything wrong," Michael hastened to say. "It's just that, well, we've received some complaints, and—" "I understand," said the old man, interrupting Michael's uncomfortable explanation. With slow movements, he began to rise from the table. "I don't want to cause any trouble. I'll go." Michael, feeling terribly guilty, quickly added, "Please allow us to offer you a free meal elsewhere as compensation for the inconvenience." The old man shook his head. "That's not necessary, young man. Thank you for your kindness." As the old man headed towards the exit, Elizabeth observed the scene with a mixture of satisfaction and disdain. However, she couldn't help but feel a pang of curiosity. Who was this man, and why had he come to a place like this? What Elizabeth didn't know was that this old man, whose name was Frank Thompson, was not a simple farmer, as she had assumed. Frank was a retired engineer who, together with his son Jake, was developing a revolutionary solar energy project. Meanwhile, in a small workshop on the outskirts of the city, Jake Thompson worked tirelessly on his latest prototype. At 32, Jake was the living image of passion and determination. His messy brown hair and brown eyes, always bright with enthusiasm, contrasted with the dark circles that betrayed long nights of work. "Dad should be here soon," he muttered to himself, looking at the clock. "I hope he had luck in getting that investor." Jake couldn't imagine that at that moment, his father was walking dejectedly through the city streets, feeling humiliated and defeated. Nor could he know that the incident at the restaurant would be the catalyst for a series of events that would change their lives forever. In another part of the city, in a luxurious mansion, Emma Blackwell, Elizabeth's daughter, was getting ready to go out. At 28, Emma was the opposite of her mother. She shared her physical beauty, the same black hair and green eyes. But that's where the similarities ended. Emma had grown up surrounded by luxury, but had always felt uncomfortable with her family's ostentatious lifestyle. She had studied environmental sciences and worked at an NGO dedicated to environmental conservation. Much to her mother's dismay, Miss Emma called Martha, the housekeeper, from her bedroom door. "Your mother just called. She says she'll be home late and not to wait up for dinner." Emma sighed. "Thanks, Martha. Anyway, I'm going out too. I have a meeting with a group of environmental activists." What Emma didn't mention was that among those activists was Jake Thompson, a young engineer she had fallen head over heels in love with. Emma knew nothing about the incident at the restaurant, nor about the connection between Jake and the man her mother had humiliated. As Emma headed to her meeting, full of hope and excitement to see Jake, she couldn't imagine how the events of that night would intertwine their destinies, creating a web of secrets, love, and redemption that would shake the foundations of their lives. The sun was setting on the horizon, tinting the sky with reddish and golden hues. It was the end of a day that marked the beginning of a story that would change all those involved. A story of prejudices and second chances, of love against all odds, and of how sometimes destiny has mysterious ways of bringing the most unlikely people together. Night had fallen over the city when Emma arrived at the small cafe where she would meet with her group of activists. The place, with its exposed brick walls and hanging plants, contrasted strongly with the luxurious environment she was accustomed to. However, for her, this space represented freedom and authenticity. As she entered, her eyes immediately searched for Jake. She found him sitting in a corner, bent over some papers, his brow furrowed in concentration. Emma felt her heart race at the sight of him. "Hi, Jake," she greeted, approaching the table. "Am I late?" Jake looked up and his face lit up with a smile. "Emma!" "Not at all. I was just reviewing some calculations for the project." Emma sat down next to him, curious. "How's everything going? Any progress?" Jake's smile faded a bit. "Well, technically the project is advancing well. The problem is funding. My dad went to talk to a potential investor today, but..." His voice trailed off, and he shook his head. "I don't know what happened, but when he came home he seemed very discouraged. He didn't want to talk about it." Emma put her hand on Jake's in a gesture of support. "I'm so sorry. I know how much this project means to you and your father. Is there anything I can do to help?" Jake looked at her gratefully. "Your support already means a lot, Emma. I don't know what I'd do without you." For a moment, they looked into each other's eyes, the world around them fading away. Emma felt she could lose herself in those brown eyes full of passion and determination. Jake, for his part, marveled at how this woman, who came from such a different world than his, could understand him so perfectly. The moment was interrupted by the arrival of the other members of the group. The meeting began, and for the next few hours, they discussed strategies to promote clean energy in the city. Jake presented his solar energy project, explaining how it could bring clean and affordable electricity to remote communities, transforming lives and protecting the environment at the same time. As Jake spoke, Emma couldn't help but feel proud. Here was a man who not only dreamed of a better world, but worked tirelessly to make it a reality. How could she not fall in love with someone like that? The meeting extended late into the night. When it finally ended, Jake offered to walk Emma home. "It's not necessary," she said, although deep down she wanted to spend more time with him. "I can take a taxi." "I insist," Jake replied with a smile. "Besides, I'd like to walk a bit, it helps clear my head." They began walking through the city streets, talking animatedly about the project and their dreams for the future. Without realizing it, their hands intertwined as they walked. "You know," Jake said after a moment of silence, "sometimes I wonder what your family would think if they knew about us." Emma felt her heart sink. She hadn't told Jake much about her family, especially about her mother. "My family is complicated," she responded cautiously, "especially my mother. She has very traditional ideas about how I should live my life." Jake nodded understandingly. "I get it. My dad can be very traditional sometimes too, but at the end of the day, I know he just wants what's best for me." They reached a corner a few blocks from Emma's house. She stopped, not wanting the night to end yet. "Jake, Before she could finish her sentence, Jake leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a tender kiss, full of promises and possibilities. When they separated, both had a smile on their face. "I'll see you tomorrow," Jake whispered. Emma nodded, speechless. She watched him walk away before heading to her house, her heart beating fast and her mind full of dreams for the future. Meanwhile, at the Blackwell mansion, Elizabeth arrived after her dinner at the Golden Sky. Her face showed an expression of satisfaction for having imposed her will at the restaurant, but there was something else, a shadow of unease that she couldn't shake off. "Ma'am," Martha greeted as she opened the door. "Did you have a good dinner?" Yes, Elizabeth replied distractedly. "Where's Emma?" "Miss Emma went out, ma'am. She said she had a meeting." Elizabeth frowned. "A meeting? At this hour? With whom?" Martha hesitated for a moment. "I believe she mentioned something about a group of environmental activists, ma'am." Elizabeth's face hardened. "I see, thank you, Martha. You may retire." Once alone, Elizabeth poured herself a glass of wine and sat in her study. The image of the old man in the restaurant kept lingering in her mind. There was something in his eyes, a dignity that didn't match his humble appearance, that unsettled her. "Don't be ridiculous, Elizabeth," she told herself. "You did the right thing. That man didn't belong in that place." But no matter how hard she tried to convince herself, a voice in the back of her mind kept questioning her actions. At that moment, the study door opened and in walked Robert Blackwell, Elizabeth's husband and Emma's father. He was a tall, distinguished man with graying hair and eyes that reflected years of experience in the business world. "Elizabeth, dear," he greeted. "How was your dinner?" Elizabeth looked at him, internally debating whether to tell him about the incident at the restaurant. Finally, she decided not to. "It was fine," she replied curtly. "Where have you been all day?" Robert sat down across from her, his face showing signs of fatigue. "At the office, there's a new energy project that's causing a stir in the market. It could be a good investment opportunity." "Energy?" Elizabeth asked, suddenly interested. "What kind of energy?" "Solar," Robert replied. "An innovative concept that could revolutionize the way we bring energy to remote areas. The interesting thing is that the project is being developed by a local team, not a big corporation." Elizabeth nodded, her mind already calculating the possible gains. "Sounds interesting. We should investigate more." Robert looked at her with a mixture of admiration and concern. He loved his wife, but sometimes he feared that her ambition blinded her to other important things in life. "Elizabeth," he said softly, "have you talked to Emma lately? I'm worried she's distancing herself from us." Elizabeth made a dismissive gesture with her hand. "Emma is going through a phase, Robert. She'll get over it. When she matures, she'll understand the importance of maintaining our position in society." Robert wasn't so sure, but he decided not to push the issue. "Maybe we should organize a family dinner, spend time together, like we used to." "Maybe," Elizabeth conceded, although her tone suggested she wasn't really interested in the idea. Now tell me more about this solar energy project. While the Blackwells discussed business and family in a small apartment on the other side of the city, Frank Thompson looked out the window, lost in his thoughts. The incident at the restaurant had affected him more than he wanted to admit. It wasn't the first time he had faced prejudice due to his appearance, but this time it had hurt more. Perhaps because he had put so much hope in that meeting, in the possibility of finally getting the support they needed for their project. "Dad," Jake's voice pulled him out of his thoughts. "Are you okay? You've been very quiet since you got back." Frank turned to his son, forcing a smile. "I'm fine, son, just a little tired." Jake didn't seem convinced. "What happened with the investor? Didn't the meeting go well?" Frank hesitated for a moment. He didn't want to discourage his son, but he also didn't want to lie to him. "The meeting didn't take place," he said finally. "There was a misunderstanding at the restaurant and, well, I decided to leave before causing problems." Jake frowned, confused. "A misunderstanding? What kind of misunderstanding?" Frank sighed. "It doesn't matter, son. What matters is that we don't lose hope. Our project is good. Someone will see it. Eventually." Jake approached his father and put a hand on his shoulder. "Dad, you know you can tell me anything, right? We're in this together." Frank looked at his son, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. "I know, Jake. And I promise you we'll find a way to make this dream a reality. For now, why don't you tell me about your meeting? How's Emma?" At the mention of Emma's name, Jake's face lit up. Frank couldn't help but smile. It was evident that his son was in love, although Jake hadn't openly admitted it yet. "Emma's fine," Jake replied, trying to sound casual. "In fact, she has some interesting ideas to promote our project." "I'm glad to hear that," Frank said. "That girl seems special. I hope I can meet her soon." Jake nodded, his mind going back to the conversation he had had with Emma about their families. "I hope so too, Dad. I really do." As father and son continued their conversation, neither of them could imagine how their lives were about to become intertwined with the Blackwells, in a web of secrets, love, and redemption that would shake the foundations of both families. The night progressed, and in different parts of the city, Elizabeth, Emma, Jake, and Frank prepared for bed, each carrying their own secrets and hopes. What none of them knew was that fate had already set in motion a series of events that would bring them all to a point of no return, where they would have to face their prejudices, fears, and deepest desires. Dawn would bring a new day, and with it, new challenges and opportunities. The story of these two families, so different and yet so similar in their internal struggles, was just beginning to unfold. The sun rose over the city, its golden rays filtering through the curtains of Emma Blackwell's room. She woke up slowly, a smile forming on her lips as she remembered the previous night with Jake. However, her happiness was quickly overshadowed by the reality of her situation. Her family, especially her mother, would never approve of her relationship with someone like Jake. Meanwhile, in the kitchen of the Blackwell mansion, Elizabeth was having her morning coffee, reviewing the financial news on her tablet. Her face lit up when she saw an article about innovations in solar energy. "Robert," she called to her husband, who was reading the newspaper at the table, "look at this. It seems that solar energy project you mentioned last night is gaining attention." Robert approached, interested. "Ah, yes, it's fascinating, isn't it? It could be a very lucrative investment if we manage to get involved early." Elizabeth nodded, her mind already working on the possibilities. "We should arrange a meeting with the developers. Do you have any information about them?" "Not much," Robert admitted. "I only know it's a local team, led by a retired engineer and his son. Apparently, they've been working on this for years." At that moment, Emma entered the kitchen, surprising her parents with her early presence. "Good morning," she greeted, trying to sound casual. "What are you talking about?" Elizabeth looked at her daughter with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. "Good morning, darling. Isn't it a bit early for you? I thought you would have gotten home late last night from your meeting." Emma tensed, aware of her mother's tone. "It wasn't that late," she lied, "and I have a lot of work at the NGO today." Robert, sensing the tension between mother and daughter, tried to change the subject. We were talking about an interesting solar energy project. In fact, Emma, given your interest in environmental issues, maybe you could give us your opinion." Emma's eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Solar energy? Sounds fascinating. What do you know about the project?" Elizabeth interrupted before Robert could answer. "It's a local project that could be a good investment opportunity. Nothing you should worry about, dear. Now, shouldn't you be getting ready for work?" Emma felt a pang of hurt at her mother's dismissive attitude. "Yes, I suppose so," she replied coldly. "Have a good day." She left the kitchen, leaving her parents in an uncomfortable silence. Robert looked at his wife reproachfully. "Elizabeth, was it necessary to be so harsh with her?" Elizabeth sighed. "Robert, you know I only want the best for Emma. That NGO and her environmental activities won't lead her anywhere. She needs to focus on more important things." "More important? According to whom?" Robert asked softly. "Maybe we should listen to her more. Who knows, her perspective could be valuable, especially with projects like this solar energy one." Elizabeth didn't respond, but her expression indicated she wasn't convinced. Meanwhile, in the Thompsons' small apartment, Jake and Frank were having breakfast together, discussing their plans for the day. "I have a meeting with a potential supplier this afternoon," Jake said between bites of toast. "If all goes well, we could significantly reduce production costs." Frank nodded, though he seemed distracted. "That's excellent, son. I think I'll go back to the restaurant today." Jake stopped eating, looking at his father with concern. "To the restaurant? The same one from yesterday? Dad, what really happened there?" Frank hesitated for a moment before finally confessing, "They asked me to leave, Jake. A rich woman, complained about my presence. She said I smelled bad and that I didn't belong there." Jake felt anger growing inside him. "What? That's unacceptable. Who does she think she is?" "It doesn't matter who she is," Frank said calmly. "What matters is that we can't let this stop us. I'm going back. I'm going to talk to the manager. Maybe I can explain our situation, get another chance to present our project." Jake admired his father's determination, but he couldn't help feeling worried. "Are you sure, Dad? I don't want you to expose yourself to more humiliation." Frank put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Sometimes, son, you have to be willing to swallow your pride for something you truly believe in. And I believe in our project. I believe in you." Jake nodded, moved by his father's words. "All right, but promise me that if anything goes wrong, you'll call me immediately." "I promise," Frank said with a smile. Later that day, Emma was at the NGO office trying to concentrate on her work, but with her mind constantly returning to Jake and the conversation with her parents that morning. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she didn't notice her colleague Sarah approaching. "Earth to Emma," Sarah joked, waving a hand in front of Emma's face. "Are you with us?" Emma blinked, coming back to reality. "Sorry, Sarah, I was thinking." Sarah smiled knowingly. "Thinking or daydreaming about a certain environmental engineer?" Emma blushed. "Is it that obvious?" "Only to someone who knows you well," Sarah replied, sitting on the edge of Emma's desk. "Why don't you tell your parents about him? Jake seems like a great guy." Emma sighed deeply. "It's not that simple. My mother, she has very specific expectations about who I should be with someone from our social class," she said, making air quotes. Sarah frowned. "That sounds pretty elitist." "It is," Emma admitted, "and the worst part is that she doesn't even realize it. This morning they were talking about a solar energy project as if it were just another opportunity to make money, without considering the positive impact it could have." "Wait," Sarah said, straightening up. "A solar energy project? Isn't that what Jake is working on?" Emma froze, her mind quickly making connections. "Oh my God, it can't be the same project, can it?" Before Sarah could respond, Emma's phone rang. It was a message from Jake. "Need to see you. Can we have lunch together? It's important." Emma felt a knot in her stomach. "I have to go," she told Sarah, quickly gathering her things. "I'll tell you everything later." As Emma hurried to meet Jake at the Golden Sky restaurant, Frank Thompson entered with determination. The maitre d' recognized him immediately, his face showing a mixture of surprise and concern. "Sir, I don't think it's appropriate for you to be here," the maitre d' said nervously. Frank remained calm. "I understand your concern, but I need to speak with the manager. It's about yesterday's incident and it's important." The maitre d' hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Wait here, please. I'll see if Mr. Turner is available." As Frank waited, he didn't realize that Elizabeth Blackwell had just entered the restaurant for her usual lunch. The moment she saw him, her face hardened. "What is that man doing here again?" she muttered to herself, approaching the maitre d'. "I thought we made it clear yesterday that this is no place for people like him." The maitre d', caught between Frank's insistence and Elizabeth's evident annoyance, didn't know what to do. At that moment, Michael Turner, the manager, came out of his office. "What's going on here?" he asked, noticing the tension in the air. Frank stepped forward. "Mr. Turner, I'm Frank Thompson. I was here yesterday, and you were asked to leave," Elizabeth interrupted brusquely. "Why have you come back? To cause more problems?" Michael looked between Frank and Elizabeth, recognizing the delicate situation. "Mrs. Blackwell, please allow me to handle this, Mr. Thompson. Why don't we step into my office to talk?" Elizabeth was about to protest when her phone rang. It was a message from Emma. "Mom, I need to talk to you urgently. It's about the solar energy project." Confused and annoyed, Elizabeth watched as Frank followed Michael to his office. She decided she would deal with that situation after talking to her daughter. Meanwhile, in a small cafe near the NGO, Emma and Jake met, both with expressions of concern on their faces. "Jake, what's going on?" Emma asked. Taking his hands, Jake took a deep breath. "Emma, I think our families are about to collide in a way we didn't expect. My dad, he was humiliated yesterday at a restaurant by a rich woman, and today he went back there to try to fix things." Emma felt her heart sink. "Oh no, Jake. I think I know who that woman was." Jake's eyes widened in surprise. "What? How?" "Because," Emma said, her voice barely a whisper, "I think it was my mother." The silence that followed was deafening. They looked at each other, aware that their worlds were about to change forever. In Michael Turner's office, Frank sat across from the restaurant manager, determined to explain his situation. "Mr. Turner," he began, "I know my presence yesterday caused problems, and I'm sorry, but I need you to understand why I'm here." Michael nodded, urging him to continue. "My son and I have developed a solar energy project that could change lives," Frank explained. "We came here yesterday hoping to meet with a potential investor. When I was asked to leave, I lost that opportunity." Michael listened attentively, his expression softening. "Mr. Thompson, I'm very sorry about what happened. Yesterday I shouldn't have given in to the pressure of a customer, no matter how influential they were." "I understand," Frank said. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just wanted another chance to present our project. It's too important to give up because of a misunderstanding." Michael leaned forward, intrigued. "Tell me more about this project." As Frank began to explain the details of their innovative solar technology, outside in the restaurant, Elizabeth received a call from Emma. "Mom," Emma's voice sounded tense, "I need you to listen without interrupting. It's about the solar energy project you were talking about this morning, and about the man you kicked out of the restaurant yesterday." Elizabeth felt the ground move beneath her feet. Suddenly, all the pieces began to fit in her mind, and the magnitude of what she had done began to weigh on her as the truth came. To light and the destinies of the Blackwell and Thompson families intertwined in unexpected ways. Everyone involved realized that nothing would ever be the same. The revelations of that day would mark the beginning of a path towards redemption, forgiveness, and perhaps a brighter future for all. The Golden Sky restaurant had become the epicenter of an emotional storm that threatened to forever change the lives of the Blackwell and Thompson families. Elizabeth Blackwell, with the phone still in her hand after Emma's call, felt that the world she had so carefully built was crumbling around her. With trembling steps, she approached the manager's office, where she knew Frank Thompson was talking to Michael Turner. Just as she was about to knock on the door, it opened, revealing the two men in an animated conversation. "Mr. Thompson," Michael said enthusiastically, "your project sounds fascinating, I think." He stopped upon seeing Elizabeth, his face changing from excitement to concern. Frank, noticing the change, turned to see what had caused the interruption. His eyes met Elizabeth's, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. "You," Frank said softly, with no trace of anger in his voice, only a deep sadness. Elizabeth, for the first time in a long time, found herself at a loss for words. The shame and remorse she had been feeling since Emma's call intensified upon seeing Frank face to face. "Mr. Thompson," she began, her voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry my behavior yesterday was inexcusable." Frank looked at her for a long moment before slowly nodding. "I appreciate your apology, ma'am, but I'm afraid the damage has already been done." "No," Elizabeth said with sudden determination. "It doesn't have to be that way. Mr. Thompson, I just spoke with my daughter. She told me about your project, about your son, about everything." Michael, sensing the tension in the air, intervened. "Why don't we all step into my office? I think we have a lot to talk about." As the three headed to the office, in the small cafe near the NGO, Emma and Jake remained seated in an uncomfortable silence after their revelation. "I can't believe your mother is the woman who humiliated my father," Jake finally said, his voice a mixture of pain and confusion. Emma took his hands in hers. "Jake, I'm so sorry, I had no idea. If I had known..." "It's not your fault," Jake interrupted her gently. "You're not your mother." "But I'm part of that family," Emma insisted. "A family that has caused pain to yours. How can we move forward after this?" Jake looked into her eyes, his determination evident. "Together," he said simply. "If you're willing to try, so..." Emma felt tears filling her eyes. "Of course I'm willing. I love you, Jake. I'm not going to let my mother's mistakes separate us." They kissed softly, sealing their commitment to stay united despite the circumstances. "We should go to the restaurant," Emma said after a moment. "I need to confront my mother, show her that I'm on your side in this." Jake nodded. "Let's go together. It's time for our families to meet, for better or worse." Meanwhile, in Michael Turner's office, the conversation between Elizabeth, Frank, and the restaurant manager took an unexpected turn. "Mr. Thompson," Elizabeth said, her voice trembling slightly, "I want to make amends for the harm I've caused your project. It sounds incredible, and if my husband and I can help in any way..." Frank looked at her with surprise. "Mrs. Blackwell, I appreciate your offer, but I'm not looking for charity." "It's not charity," Michael intervened. "Mr. Thompson's project has enormous potential. From a purely commercial standpoint, it would be a smart investment." Elizabeth nodded emphatically. "Exactly. Mr. Thompson, my husband and I have the resources and connections to take your project to the next level. Please allow us to help, not just as a form of compensation, but as a true partnership." Frank hesitated, considering the offer. "I would need to discuss it with my son. He's been the real brain behind all of this." At that moment, the office door burst open, revealing Emma and Jake, both out of breath as if they had run all the way there. "Mom!" Emma exclaimed. "What's going on here?" Elizabeth turned to her daughter, her face a mixture of emotions. "Emma, I was trying to make things right." Jake, for his part, looked at his father with concern. "Dad, are you okay? What have they done to you?" Frank smiled softly at his son. "I'm fine, Jake. In fact, I think things are getting better." Michael, seeing the confusion on the young people's faces, decided to take control of the situation. "Why don't we all sit down and talk? I think there's a lot to clear up." For the next hour, Michael Turner's office became the stage for an emotional and revealing conversation. Elizabeth, with tears in her eyes, apologized again to Frank, this time in front of everyone. She explained how Emma's call had opened her eyes, making her see the damage her elitist behavior had caused. Emma, for her part, passionately defended her relationship with Jake and the project he was working on. "Mom," she said, "this project isn't just a business opportunity. It's an opportunity to do something good for the world. Isn't that what you always taught me? To make a difference?" Elizabeth looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and regret. "You're right, honey. I think at some point I lost sight of what really matters. I became so obsessed with maintaining our social position that I forgot why we work so hard in the first place." Jake, who had been listening in silence, finally spoke. "Mrs. Blackwell, I appreciate your apologies and your offer of help. But I need to know, Do you really believe in our project? Or is it just a way to ease your conscience? Elizabeth looked him straight in the eyes. Jake, I've made many mistakes, but I promise you that my interest in your project is genuine. I've read about it, I've seen its potential, and if you give me the chance, I'd like to learn more, not just as an investor, but as someone who wants to make a real difference. Frank put a hand on his son's shoulder. Jake, I think we should consider their offer. This could be the opportunity we've been waiting for. After a moment of reflection, Jake slowly nodded. Okay, but I want to make it clear. This project is our baby. If we're going to work together, it has to be a true collaboration. Of course, Elizabeth agreed. Then, looking at Emma and Jake, she added, and as for you two, Emma, I'm sorry for not trusting your judgment. Jake seems to be an extraordinary young man, and if he makes you happy, then I'm happy too. Emma hugged her mother, tears of relief and happiness running down her cheeks. Thank you, Mom. You don't know how much this means to me. Michael, who had been observing everything with a smile, intervened. Well, I think this deserves a celebration. How about we all have dinner together tonight? On the house, of course. Everyone agreed, and as they left the office, there was a feeling of hope and new beginnings in the air. That night, at a specially prepared table in the Golden Sky, the Blackwell and Thompson families sat together for the first time. Robert Blackwell, who had been informed of the day's events by his wife, was present, showing genuine interest in the solar energy project. As they dined and conversed, the barriers that once seemed insurmountable began to crumble. Elizabeth, to everyone's surprise, including her own, found herself fascinated by Frank's stories about his years as an engineer and his struggles to develop the project. Mr. Thompson, she said at one point during dinner, I'd like to visit your workshop. If possible, I'd love to see firsthand what you've been working on. Frank, surprised but pleased, nodded. It would be my pleasure, Mrs. Blackwell, although I must warn you it's not as luxurious as this restaurant. Elizabeth smiled. I think it's about time I step out of my comfort zone, don't you think? Meanwhile, Emma and Jake, sitting next to each other, couldn't stop smiling. The weight of the secret they had been carrying had been lifted, and although they knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, they were ready to face it together. Robert Blackwell, observing the scene, raised his glass. I propose a toast, he said, to new beginnings, new partnerships, and above all, to the power of forgiveness and understanding. Everyone raised their glasses, the clinking of crystal symbolizing the union of two families that, just a day before, had seemed worlds apart. As the dinner continued, filled with laughter and animated conversations, outside the restaurant the city continued its usual rhythm. But for the people seated at that table, the world had changed. They had learned valuable lessons about prejudice, forgiveness, and the true meaning of success. And as the sun set over the city, marking the end of a day that had begun with conflict and ended with reconciliation, one thing was clear. Sometimes, the most unexpected encounters can lead to the most profound transformations. The story of the Blackwell and Thompson families was far from over. In fact, in many ways, it was just beginning. But with the foundations of mutual understanding and respect they had established that night, the future, though uncertain, seemed bright and full of possibilities. 6 months had passed since that night at the Golden Sky that changed the course of the Blackwell and Thompson families' lives. The morning sun filtered through the windows of the Thompsons' modest workshop, now transformed into a state-of-the-art laboratory thanks to the Blackwell's investment Jake, with dark circles under his eyes that betrayed nights of hard work, but with a satisfied smile on his face, was putting the finishing touches on a prototype. Beside him, Frank watched with pride the fruit of years of effort and sacrifice. Son, Frank said, putting a hand on Jake's shoulder, your mother would be so proud of you. Jake felt a lump in his throat. Although years had passed since his mother's death, moments like this always brought her back to his memory. Thanks, Dad. I couldn't have gotten this far without you. The sound of heels in the hallway announced Elizabeth Blackwell's arrival. 6 months ago, the idea of Elizabeth in a workshop would have been unthinkable. Now, she was a frequent visitor, genuinely interested in the project's progress. Good morning, gentlemen, Elizabeth greeted, her tone warm and genuine, very different from the coldness that once characterized her. "How's everything going for this afternoon's presentation?" Jake smiled. "All set, Elizabeth. I think the investors will be impressed." Elizabeth nodded approvingly. "I'm sure they will be. You've worked tirelessly on this." At that moment, Emma entered the workshop, loaded with folders and her tablet in hand. "Good morning, everyone. I've got the latest environmental impact reports. They're even better than we expected." Elizabeth looked at her daughter with a mixture of pride and amazement. In the past few months, Emma had proven to be not only a passionate environmentalist, but also a skilled business strategist. The combination of her ethical vision and business knowledge had been crucial to the project's success. "Excellent work, darling," Elizabeth said. Then, addressing everyone, she added, "I think it's time we prepare for the presentation. We have a lot to do before the investors arrive." As the team dispersed to finalize the details, Robert Blackwell entered the workshop. His face showed a mixture of excitement and nostalgia. "Frank," he called to his old friend, "do you have a moment?" Frank nodded, and both men moved to a quiet corner of the workshop. "What's up, Robert?" Frank asked, noticing the seriousness on his friend's face. Robert pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I found this among some old papers. I think it belongs to you." Frank took the envelope with trembling hands. As he opened it, his eyes filled with tears. It was an old photo from almost 30 years ago. In it, a young Frank and a young Robert smiled at the camera, standing in front of what appeared to be their first workshop together. "Our first project," Frank whispered, his voice filled with emotion. Robert nodded. "We were so young, so full of dreams. And then, well, you know what happened." Frank remembered well a disagreement over the direction of their joint venture had led to a bitter dispute. Robert had opted for a more corporate and lucrative path, while Frank had remained true to his original vision of creating technology that truly helped people. The breakup of their partnership and friendship had been painful for both. "Robert," Frank said, looking his old friend in the eye, "I think we both made mistakes in the past, but look where we are now. Our families united, working together on something that could change the world. Maybe everything had to happen the way it did to get to this point." Robert smiled, his eyes also moist. "You're right, old friend, and you don't know how glad I am to be here working with you again. This time, we'll do things right." The two men embraced, 30 years of misunderstandings and resentments dissolving in that gesture. Meanwhile, in another part of the workshop, Jake and Emma were reviewing the presentation together. "Nervous?" Emma asked, noticing how Jake kept adjusting his tie. Jake let out a nervous laugh. "Is it that obvious? It's just that we've worked so hard on this. If something goes wrong..." Emma took his hand, interrupting him. "Nothing will go wrong. Your project is brilliant, Jake. And besides," she added with a mischievous smile, "you have a secret weapon." "Oh yeah?" Jake asked, raising an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "Me," Emma replied, giving him a quick kiss. "I'll be by your side every step of the way." Jake hugged her, marveling at how, amidst all the chaos and challenges of the past few months, their love had blossomed and strengthened. At 3 p.m. sharp, the auditorium of the Blackwell Thompson Foundation for Sustainable Innovation was full. Investors, journalists, and important figures from the world of technology and the environment waited. In anticipation, Elizabeth took the stage to give the welcome. Her presence, once intimidating, now radiated genuine warmth and passion. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, "6 months ago, I thought I knew everything about success and power. Today, I'm here to tell you that I was wrong. True, success is not measured in money or social status, but in the positive impact we can have on the world." She paused, her eyes scanning the audience before settling on her family and the Thompsons. "What you will see today is the result of 2 families who overcame their differences to work for a greater good. It is proof that when we set aside our prejudices and work together, we can achieve extraordinary things." With those words, Elizabeth gave way to Jake and Emma. The young couple took the stage, their initial nervousness giving way to serene confidence as they began their presentation. For the next hour, Jake and Emma captivated the audience with their vision of a sustainable energy future. They explained how their innovative solar technology could bring clean and affordable electricity to remote communities, transforming lives and protecting the environment at the same time. When they finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. The investors stood up, clearly impressed. Camera flashes illuminated the stage as Jake and Emma, hand in hand, waved to the audience backstage. Frank and Robert watched with pride, their eyes moist with emotion. "They did it," Frank whispered. Robert nodded. "We all did it, my friend." Elizabeth joined them, her face radiant with happiness. "Gentlemen, I think this calls for a celebration." That night, at the same restaurant where it had all begun, the Blackwell and Thompson families gathered to celebrate. The atmosphere was one of jubilation and camaraderie. Michael Turner, the restaurant manager who had witnessed the beginning of this extraordinary story, approached the table with a bottle of champagne. "On the house," he said with a smile, "to celebrate not only your success, but also the transformation I've been privileged to witness." Elizabeth raised her glass. "To second chances," she toasted. "To family." Frank added, "To a bright future," Jake said, looking at Emma with love. "To the power of understanding and forgiveness," Emma concluded. As the glasses clinked and laughter filled the air, each of them reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Elizabeth, once blinded by prejudice and social status, had discovered the true meaning of success and satisfaction. Frank, who had faced humiliation and disappointment, now saw his lifelong dream becoming a reality. Jake and Emma, whose love had been the catalyst for all this change, looked towards a future full of promises, both personally and professionally. And Robert Blackwell, who had regained not only an old friend, but also a part of himself he thought was lost, felt rejuvenated and full of purpose. As the night progressed, the conversation flowed easily, full of plans for the future and memories of the past. The tension and misunderstandings that had once divided them had transformed into a solid foundation of mutual respect and affection. Outside the restaurant, the city bustled with life, and somewhere in a remote community, a light was turning on for the first time, powered by the technology they had created. Together, it was just the beginning of a change that would spread throughout the world. At the end of the night, as the families said goodbye with hugs and promises to meet again soon, each left with a full heart and the certainty that, despite the challenges they might face in the future, they would face them together. And so what had begun as an unfortunate encounter in a luxury restaurant had transformed into a story of redemption, love, and the power of change. The Blackwell and Thompson families, once separated by prejudice and misunderstandings, were now united by a common purpose and a bond that went beyond business or social status. As they walked away from the restaurant, Emma and Jake, hand in hand, looked up at the starry sky. "Who would have thought we'd end up like this?" Emma reflected. Jake smiled, gently squeezing her hand. "Sometimes the universe has mysterious ways of bringing the right people together at the right time." And with those words, they walked together towards their future, carrying with them the most valuable lesson of all, that true power doesn't reside in money or status, but in the ability to open our hearts, forgive and work together for a greater good.